If you talk to people from a point of view of power and ability, they admire it. It is the time for the Westerns to understand that we are doing a very holy and important job, sacrificing our people, not only for the sake of Israel, but for the sake of the West. Speaking about checkmate, they didn't finish the game as they like. The two interpretations of Islam are aiming the same, to reach a global control over the world. The universal global disaster doesn't frighten them. And we Jews remember what the Muslims did at the time of the Prophet. Hamas did it to our daughters, to our women. They slaughtered the men, they robbed, they fired and burned and destroyed. It's very, very inherent in the heritage of Islam. In the Middle East, any weak entity will die. Europe will wake up when it will be too late.
Is the inevitable endpoint then our defeat?
If I give some advice to the European, be proud of your history, be proud of your achievement, imitate us. We are not afraid of anybody. There is nothing to be ashamed of.
I'm Jonathan Sacerdoti. Dr. Reuven Berko, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me.
You have a long history as an intelligence officer and also an expert with a doctorate in radical Islam. This moment feels to many of us like the pinnacle of all the tensions that have existed in this country's history. Are we in a moment of enormous change for the future of Israel?
This is a wonderful question. Thank you for asking me this, because I'm also an historian, and because I was a son of Holocaust survivors, the question whether it is the most dangerous point in the Jewish life all over history, no, it is not. Of course, Iranian Shia threatening our very existence in Israel. But I can tell you from my father's experience, my late father and my mother, that their family was exposed to the same threat and they didn't make it. And they went by the smoke of Auschwitz to the skies. So comparison to what they have passed over, our situation is very good, despite the fact that we can compare the threat. In Europe, the Jews faced a threat of abandoning. We face the same threat. Hitler openly said that he wanted to finish the existence of the Jews in Europe. Ayatollah Khomeini says the same thing. And he is a countdown clock in Tehran that speaks that the time of the Jews and the state of Israel is about to end and Israel about to vanish. So it is a good opportunity for me as a man of a Holocaust survivors to fight for the sake of Israel in these very critical moments in which Israel is fighting for its survival. And this time we do very well. We listen carefully to the threats, we take the threats very seriously, and we do very good job as an officer in intelligence. I can tell you, I had a little part in this struggle, but my friends are doing much better job than I ever dreamt about. I'm an old fellow, an old officer. I still contribute here and there, but my friends do a very good job, and you see the targets not only in Iran, but you can watch what we do in Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza Strip, and the miracles, the people in the Mossad, what they did in Hezbollah, all proxies of the same Ayatollah, all proxies that has been building a belt of fire just to make Israel vanish. And if you see what we've done, beginning with the Houthis that are still acting and going through the nexus that Tehran has been creating through Baghdad, over Damascus, ending in Beirut, and going down to Hormuz and Bab el-Mandeb, you see that the effort of Iran is not targeting only Israel. They are playing a very complicated, smart check game. And they thought about bringing a mate to us. Speaking about checkmate, they didn't finish the game as they liked. And what I can tell you and our beloved audience is that from the steps we reached to in Israel, They are about to finish the role of this special game. And I believe that it is the time for the Westerns to understand that we are doing a very holy and important job sacrificing our people, not only for the sake of Israel, but for the sake of the West, because they're creating a very heavy, risky ballistic missiles, and they are preparing for atomic warheads. This is risky, this is dangerous.
You mentioned the Holocaust in your own personal history, and my father also was a child survivor of the Holocaust in Italy. So I'm familiar with that as a motivation for the Jewish people's quest for survival, but not just for survival, to thrive and to contribute to the world. I wonder if, when we look at the conflict now with Iran, we can see two sides here who have very different but very passionate and fundamental reasons for their resilience. So we have this sense as Jews and Israel as the Jewish state of needing to prevent another Holocaust. And Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, has a belief in 12-verse Shiite Islam, which has an apocalyptic vision for the end of days.
The idea of the Mahdi, and if I can short it, it's a question of apocalypta. The apocalypta, the universal global disaster doesn't frightening them. They aim to it because they believe that the end of apocalyptic event, that one of the results is this total destruction of Jewish people and Israel, and a total destruction of the world as you know it in the West. It will create a revolution throughout this revolution, this apocalyptic event will see the Mahdi appears and the Islamic rule of the world will occur. This is the aim. This is what they are thinking about. In my house, I have a very unique book that is very complicated to translate and understand, named Jafar. The Jafar is the name of a book. The Orientalists, I think they would be happy to translate it into European languages because it explains the idea of how Islamic Shia dynasty will end in a global rule of the world by Shia, by Islam. By the way, it's not that different from Islamic Sunni radicalism because the two interpretations of Islam are aiming the same to reach a global control over the world.
And so when you say that, I want to dig into some of that deeper. We are looking at the prospect of a Middle East where the Shia tyranny in Iran is really intent on Israel's complete destruction. But the West is perhaps somewhat ignorant of that motivation and the strategies they'll take. And at the same time, there is a, let's say, diplomatic effort to work with the moderate Sunni states. And what you're saying is, well, that's fine for now, but ultimately the end goal, as you see it in your studies of both these branches of Islam, is the same.
The same goal, the same target. And the one very key word should be learned in the West. They tend to believe in agreements and words, even though if you look the history of the West, of Europe, no peace treaty was respected all over the history of Europe. They were bloodshotters, not less, sorry for saying that, than the Arabs and the Muslims all over the Middle East. The European even didn't respect words, and they rely on the words of Islam that has one of these important terminology is the taqiyya, where taqiyya allow you to lie. So any agreement that might be signed upon is judged to fail. And this is something you cannot convince them. And another thing is to remember the double standards the West is suffering. I don't remember that the Churchill, whom we admire in Israel, have ever worn Dresden before it was totally destroyed, including the civilians in Dresden. I don't remember the Americans ever speaking to Japanese in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, saying to them, evacuate because we are about to bomb. God forbid, we do not do this. We have another standards. We warned them before. But I can't understand sometimes the way the West trying to maneuver us to give up and to say live on condition that somebody might change his mind. Let the Iranians sign an agreement. Let's compromise on the level of enriching uranium. Maybe this is an optimistic point of view that Jews suffer from. We say, "Mitoch shelo lishma yehi lishma." The translation of it is, let's be optimistic. Maybe by the process, it will be changed. And it's never changed because it's in a matter of radical Islamism. Shia and Sunni are the same. It's a basic theological idea that to estimate what the Prophet did and the followers is to take one's property, to slaughter the man who refuses to go by the idea of Islam, and to rape his wife is legitimate by wars. I take your house, I take your car, take your wife, I even use her from sexual point of view. This is something that includes, and we Jews remember what the Muslim did at the time of the Prophet to Rihana bin Zaid وكمان Sophia bint Huyay ibn Akhtab, two women that were raped at the time of the Prophet. We'll never forget it. Hamas did it to our daughters, to our women. They slaughtered the men, they robbed, and they fired and burned and destroyed. They didn't invent the system. It's built on the hadith. It's built on the biography of the Prophet. It's very, very inherent in the heritage of Islam. You should take my religion, otherwise I destroy you. You are a kafir, and your destiny is to death or to convert to Islam.
Is it controversial for you to say that? Or would Muslims, never mind Hamas, but other Muslims, recognize what you're saying as true?
Thanks God, not all Muslims are terrorists. We must admit this. We look at the environment, but almost all terrorists are Muslims. This is a paradigm that we.
But can there be an Islam in the 21st century? Islam is a relatively young religion compared to Judaism and Christianity, which themselves never started from that position, but themselves went through enlightenments and reformations of sorts. Is there, in your opinion, any prospect of that?
Islam doesn't aim or aiming to change and make reform. On the contrary, they are eager to go back, Salafiyah, to go back to the origin, to the sources, to the basic. That Judaism has passed over generations, changed. Christianity, look at them. They were a religious war in Europe against the Pope, against the king, whatever. But what we see is the people didn't lose their faith, but they are not that radical Orthodox Christians all over Europe.
So if you can say that Christianity went through that transformation at the time, it was a big transformation from something much worse to something much more enlightened and modern.
So you call it worst, but as for radical Islamism, is the right thing.
For the radicals, for the Salafists.
So it's relative terminology and comparison. For them, Salaf Saleh, which is the past that is the right thing to do, is a role model or is a model to imitate. Mm-hmm. And once you fail to imitate it, then you're not a Muslim. You might be defined as a kafir as well. If you dare to change a bit, you are murtad, which is somebody who got out of religion, and you can be put on the target of Islamic warriors.
Yes, apostasy, effectively, in English. But the point being here, I suppose, is that other religions went through those transformations, and the people previous to the transformation would have had the attitude you say. So I wonder if your work, your life work as an intelligence officer, means that you've seen the very worst. You've interrogated the worst people, and this is, in a way, given you, understandably, this position of effectively seeing the worst in all of Islam. Isn't there a possibility of some form of reform in the future which might get us away from that Salafism?
We have some examples of this attempt, of this direction. I'm not good enough in details in this matter, but as far as I know, we see a very, very bold change in Saudi Arabia
Mhm.
from tough Wahhabism into schools of changing minds and hearts of people towards being more moderate and less radical and aggressive towards other nations and other religions. Whether it will be successful or not, I cannot tell you, because all what we are dealing here with the Middle East is a mob of millions of people who obey the rules, the rulers, only by force. Take Egypt as an example. I can guess that the majority of Egyptians are tending to Muslim brothers and to radicalism, and the regime is different, is moderate because of interests with the West. Take Saudi Arabia. Just God forbid if something happened to MBS, what would happen underneath? The map will go ahead, the map will be discovered, and the whole story might be changed. That's why Israel is very careful about agreements, because if we do agreements with leaders, by the time, even in Jordan, we sometimes believe that we have a wonderful peace treaties with Egypt and Jordan, and Abraham Accords will take us ahead with under the keyword peace. It will be the word might be changed from peace to peace. You know, I don't want to get into it by vocabulary, but it's very, very dangerous to count on agreements, words, papers. Chamberlain said, "I brought peace to you all," but you remember what happened afterwards. That's why in this critical moment that we're speaking about the crisis in the Middle East and the story of Ayatollahs, this junction that we are dealing with, maybe the Iranian will raise a white flag and say, okay, we understood the clue. The Jews has made the story. They they led to almost total destruction of Iran. Let's negotiate. Trump is a cowboy. And I believe that he understands by his natural, very developed sense as a businessman, as an American, that those people are trying to fool the West. And maybe at the end of the day, they will reach to an agreement that will include everything except for the matter of enriching and missiles and feeding and helping terrorist movements by money, instead of giving this to the Iranian people. And last sentence in this matter is that I believe that the Iranian people understand this matter, and we should expect a very huge dramatic change from Iranian civilians towards this brutal regime of the Ayatollahs.
Now, as an intelligence officer, your work, presumably, especially with interrogations and investigations.
I don't want to get into these professional matters, but I can tell you in general that the people I met, some of them were totally convinced in the matter of a Palestinian narrative that never existed, because their brain were totally washed. And even some of them who deal with the stream of radical Islamism, I proved to them that there was never been mentioned the word Palestine in the Quran, nor Palestinian people mentioned in the Quran. Actually, there was no, leave the Quran aside a bit, there was no Palestinian state all over history, no coin, no government, no election, no parliament ever been existed in the Palestinian story. This is a new invention. But if I go with the people I met to the matter of Quran, I said to them, where the hell you are mentioned in the Quran? We, Israel, son of Israel, are mentioned all so many places in the Quran. We are the blessed and chosen people in the Quran. Maybe people will be surprised with what I say. Check me. I tell you, the Israeli people, the sons of Israel, whom- it's not the Palestinians, of course. Despite the fact that some Palestinians said that Jesus was a Palestinian, it's a new invention, you know. And the Big Bang belonged to Palestinians. You maybe met that. So they are very talented in imitating and taking other people identity. And by this, like Jesus as an example for those people who never had history at all. If we speak about Quran, and I'm dealing with people who believe in Islam, who believe in Quran, say, just go to the origins. Origins. We are gifted the blessed land. Several places in the Quran say, "You are the one who inherited the holy place, the al-ard al-mubaraka, or al-ard alati barakna fiha." This belongs to the son of Israel, and they say, "اذكروا يا بني إسرائيل اذكروا نعمتي التي أنعمت عليكم وإني فضلتكم على العالمين," which means you, sons of Israel, remember that I preferred you. I've been putting on you glory and mercy and all these talent features that the Jewish have. It's a ni'mah. We have chosen you upon all nations. So they cannot face it. And so they ignore it and invent a story that we, the Jews, who suffered 2,000 years just because we struggle to stay Jews, are not the real Jews. The real Jews disappeared, no longer exist. This is a way to hide away from what Quran judges for generations. We are the blessed people, the land belongs to us. Why ignore it? Because, as you say, you are people who have been sent by the European colonialism. You are the new crusaders. You are not the Jews. This is a colonia of crusaders come to Palestine. There is no Jews existed any longer. So I say to them, to end this matter of religion, since you ask it. So if the Jews disappeared and no longer exist, how come that the end of Surat Bani Israel, the Islamic prophet says, وَقُلْنَا مِنْ بَعْدِيَا لِبَنِي إسرائيل, I quote it in short, اسكنوا الأرض وإذا جاء وعد الآخرة جئنا بكم لفيفا, which means you should live in the land. And when times of the end of the days come, we will gather you all over the world and put you back in the land of Israel as given you it in the very beginning. So they say, oh, God will gather you, just the Uli Ba'fin Shadid, which is the terrorist groups of Islam, will destroy us. I said to them, why should Allah bring us all to Israel to destroy us? He can kill us everywhere, all over the world. You know, they are going zigzag just to escape from the words of Allah that is given to Muhammad, that this land belongs to the sons of Israel, belong to the Jews. This is in a very short sentences, the explanation of the way I met people and negotiated with radical Islamic activists who cannot face even what is written in their own Quran, unfortunately, and the nationalists who do not believe that much in Quran cannot run away from the demand to prove that there's ever been a Palestine over history. There's never been. The question that you might ask me is, what the hell the Shia wants from us? They live 2,000 kilometers in Iran. What the hell does they want from us? This is a question deserve to be asked.
We'll get there in a minute. But what I want to ask you about your work then, that I appreciate you can't talk about many elements of it, but I also interviewed your extraordinary wife, Anat Berko, Dr. Anat Berko, and both of you have in common that your positions, your thoughts come from very close interaction with Arabs, Arab extremists, terrorists, and those in
prisoners. She wrote, she's about to finish her third book.
Right. And we have the interview that people can go and watch that I did with her. It's fascinating. My question, I suppose, is that in her books, you really appreciate that she manages to blend in her conversations with them a degree of understanding or empathy. I won't say that she shows friendship, that's not right, but with a strategic cynicism or a strategic suspicion. And you must have had to do the same in your work. My question is, how do you recognize that on the bigger picture when you say Israel and the West are making these treaties and deals and peace agreements or accords with states which appear to be trying to reform and push their populations into reform? From what you're saying, this is really a fool's errand, that we're going to regret it deeply in the future. And yet, what's the alternative?
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you something that will be very sad. In the Middle East, any weak entity will die, will be finished. So it leads to a very key word, which is power. Power speaks in the Middle East. Weak people, weak nations disappear. So if you talk to people from a point of view of power and abilities, they admire you. It occurs only in Arab states to the leaders. Once a leader lose power, the mob get control of it. You remember the optimistic vision of the West when we spoke about the Arab Spring. There was euphoria. Oh, here we'll see people who will treat our a heritage in the West, our beliefs, our manners, our way of living, from all point of view. This is a new nation. See what we got instead. We got Mursi and the Muslim Brothers in a, and at the end of the process, if we even see at the help of Israel, we read it, like it or not, we got the Gilani, one who led Al Qaeda,
In
is
Syria.
a radical Islamist leading Syria today and sending to hell Mr. Assad, who actually helped the nexus of Iran to supply all materials and arm for Hezbollah. So this is a very unstable earth underneath that we cannot be sure ever, not in a contract, not in a word, not in a signature. And maybe if Chamberlain would met us at the time, he will understand that those who act like Hitler at his time and Ayatollah Khamenei, this Ali Khamenei, cannot be trusted. And if we get to a decision that let's negotiate with them, there will be always a question mark in what laboratory they complete the project of atomic warhead. And this should be one of the objects of worry in the West, because I ask all the time, Iran has so much fuel, so much gas, so much oil. Why do they need atomic energy? And they have enemies who actually threat Iran. Why should they have atomic weapon? Why should they have missiles? Why should they have so long range missiles that can threat Europe? Not only Israel. I tell you why. Because the idea, the dream of Ayatollahs is to control at first the Middle East. As Leonard Cohen said, first we'll take Manhattan, then we'll take Berlin. They think about first we begin with Yom Shabbat, Saturday, and let's go later on to Sunday.
The Sunday people.
Sunday people are Christians.
Yeah.
Saturday are the Jews, like Leonard Cohen with the song I mentioned. So even the strategic point of view that you control Hormuz and you control Bab el-Mandeb by the Houthis, the Hormuz, by Iranian themselves. Look what happened to Egypt. The Suez Canal is paralyzed. Nobody passes over. It's a great damage to Egypt. And they do not dare to do anything.
So it's not just here in the Middle East, the problem, because first Manhattan and then, let's say in this case, Europe. What's going to wake up European leaders? We've got at the moment in Trump an American president who appears to appreciate things the way you're saying them, but even that is
I'll
temporary.
tell you, I understand very quickly the question. You know what will wake them up? The Islamic radical enclaves in Europe. There are two ways to satisfy your lover. What's the song of Paul Simon? There are two ways to control the West by the story of a radical Islamism, Shia also as well. Shia do it by weapons. Islamic, as Gaddafi from Libya said, we will conquer Europe without even shooting one bullet. Listen, Europe is in danger. Europe will wake up when it will be too late. The Islamic radical enclaves, it's part of my doctorate, it's been proven by people who observe and like Daniel Pipes and others, and Appleby and others, professors, who said very clearly the enclaves in Europe are a great danger because they get control of the states they are guests in, and this explains the standpoint of President Macron, who says, "Oh, I'm about to help," and maybe he have a very colored, very hypocrite standpoint towards Israel because he is afraid from his Islamic radical community that can turn Paris into flames. That's the only story. Does this? I can't even prevent myself from remembering the policy of France at the time of a Second World War. They, men and women, delivered themselves to Nazi control at the time of Vichy. I don't want to get ahead with it. French people, unfortunately, very easily deliver themselves.
There's a funny meme going around at the moment, a picture of Benjamin Netanyahu and Macron on the phone. Netanyahu says to him, I need your help with Iran. And he says, we're not going to get involved. He said, no, I need you to tell them how to surrender.
Well, even Islamists will never do this, to surrender this way. So he cannot give any advice to Arabs. They are too proud.
But so, Reuven, here's my question then. And it's the question not just for you, it's the question of our time, of our life. You said Europe will wake up when it's too late.
No doubt about it.
I think it might already be too late, and yet
I speak
still
about
asleep.
England as well.
Me too.
Speaking about England as well, not only France.
So is the inevitable endpoint then our defeat?
I would like to quote Dr. Daniel Pipes, even though I don't remember precisely what he said, but he predicted there is a special point in which one of the communities, there will be a combat, a clash between two communities. And Bernard Lewis even mentioned it, and they say that he changed his mind, the clash between societies.
Yes.
So Daniel predicted that at one historical point, the two communities will have a crash, and one of them will disappear. One of them, whether the Islamic or a communities will go back to where they came from, and the peace will be again in Europe, or the contrary. But one day there will be a crash. I can explain any policy being made by France as a result of fears from the Islamic community inside.
So who does Reuven Berko think is going to win that clash?
It's hard to me. I'm not a prophet. I'm hardly a doctor made by his doctoral dissertation in the Operation Code of Radical Islamism, and they never give up. If you ask me about my side, Islam, I represent Islam. I know not much about your temperature, readiness to sacrifice. If I speak about France, I do not recognize any. And they have a wonderful army, very beautiful uniforms. I do not recognize, since Napoleon, I do not recognize in France any readiness and any willingness to do something brave. See what they done in the Second World War. So if I compare what I know about the culture of radical Islamism, they never give up. They have a goal, they have a target, they go easy to fulfill the Prophet's mission to control the world. So as far as I can predict, the Islamic one is stronger for the time being. Even if we speak about a butcher in Seine or anywhere in Paris, a butcher or anybody else who walk in the street, when he turns to energy contributed to turn Paris into flames, he will be a warrior. This man that go just like that in the street,
Civil war.
And we had this even in Israel in one of the operations that the unfortunately some of the Arab civilians in Israel thought that Israel is in danger and a risk. They combined themselves to the struggle of Palestinians outside Gaza, in Gaza, and turned our streets into flames as well. So we were calm and happy because we thought that those people in Israel who have representative in the Knesset, we thought that they are loyal to country. I don't generalize, of course, but I tell you that a lot of them, and even today, when Iran launched missiles on Israel, you see people in the north from the Arab community who are happy and dancing and saying, "Oh God, thank you, etc."
When you say that in these situations, the clash is inevitable and the extremists in Islam don't give up,
Never. It's part of their belief in religion.
it seems to me that what you're saying is that Europe, the West more broadly, will give up because it's lost the sense of identity and fervor and belief and
Even
religion.
the belief in Christianity, from a religious point of view, they lost a lot of it. If you compare the abilities and wills coming out of the belief, they lost it. If you even compare the number of birth and death, they have no chance to survive.
So my question is, though, because Europe, and I can speak for the UK, which for the first time in our last census,
The number one name in England is Muhammad, as far as I know, right?
sure, but though if all Muslims call their children Muhammad, you don't need to be a majority. But let's just pause that a
It's
second.
a question of courses.
Wait a second, because what I want to ask you is this. If the UK is no longer majority Christian identifying, which it isn't.
I don't know, no longer. It got down. They do not.
It is. Our census shows it, that for the first time ever, a majority don't define themselves as Christian. The alternative that most people define themselves as is secular. It's a secularism. Can secularism ever beat the fervor of a religion, or must you fight fire with fire?
Listen, secularism touches a lot of manners. Let's take secularism vis-a-vis homosexualism, for example. Some of them support Palestinian struggle, support Islamic. You see in the riots, Islam, and the flag of homosexuals going with them. They cannot understand that the time Islam win, they die. It's for sure the misunderstanding of those protesters in the streets. You see them carrying bags with the 5 colors and hats with the 5 colors. They believe that they struggle for the right reason, but as if they are shooting their own legs by rioting for the sake of Palestine from the river to the sea must be free. And they're so ignorant. They don't understand what they say. If you ask them, where is Palestine, what river, what sea, none of them know. And if the slogan will be fulfilled, it's actually racism. Those secular actually support the vanishing of the Jewish people who sit here and have a state of its own here. What do you want? From the river to the sea. Palestine will be free from whom? From the Jews. Oh God, you try to kill us in Europe and you are running after us even here to Israel. Secularism is a word I do not want you to generalize. I'm a secular as well. I am a Jew. I believe in God, but I do not fulfill the manners of Judaism precisely as it's written. But I consider myself a Jew. If secularism means the total loss of identity, of sense of belonging, I cannot treat this.
This is a distinction between nationalism, national identity, and let's say a secular identity, which I think is what I'm trying to ask. If we're dealing with a threat from a very passionate extremist religious perspective, and we're trying to face it down from a modern egalitarian secular identity, you're right. You and many people in Israel.
Powers, some is very strong and very keeping momentum, and the other.
It's not, because look where we are here in Israel. You have effectively a Jewish but predominantly secular, or at least in large part secular.
Most of the Jewish Israeli society, most of it, I cannot define it by numbers or rate, but I can tell you most of the Israelis who live in Israel, I mean the Jews who live in Israel, are identifying with the Jewish principle that give us the right to be here. It's the Bible, the ancient book. And if I were a Muslim, I would support Israel because even the Quran gives us the permission to live here.
So has humankind effectively then fought its way out of survival, in your opinion? We think we've, as a species, many in the West think they have surpassed religious belief. The Bible told me, God promised. They think they can take the best of religion and incorporate it in a modern secular existence. But you're saying, no, without the bedrock, without the Torah, without God.
In what concerns the Jews. But I cannot tell you what in those people's mind. What is what the term secular means in you? Did he lose his sense of belonging to France, to Britain? For example, I admire the British ancient culture. When I was a child, I used to see theaters from Thames. It was wonderful to see British theater.
But we're not going to be jihad with
what Shakespeare. The question is, I tell you, I try to deal with the question, what is secular? Did you lose your love to British music? Did you lose your sense of belonging to the heritage of Britain, the crown, the kingdom, the history of England, what with the politeness and the sense of humor of England, all what we outsiders looked at and admired, and myself, the stories my father told me about the British Army here. Some of it was wrong towards us. They made a lot of mistakes in our case in Israel. But he said to me, they were soldiers and officers of manners. They were polite. They had moral. So if you leave aside the church, all these religious rituals, leave aside. If you think yourself a secular, but still believe that you are an Englishman, so no matter if you're in New York, an Englishman in New York, or whoever, you are an Englishman in Israel. So if you lose all these coordinator, you are a man without a compass. You do not know who you are.
So let me ask, in that case, if I can say, you sound a bit like Hassan al-Banna, who said, our society has lost its ethical and religious touch point. Let's refocus on the essence of our religion and our beliefs and create a society that will look after all of us, and do so by emphasizing our core fundamentals. How do we learn from what extremist Islam did without becoming them? How do we take on board their techniques in order to do the same for our identities?
You know, I'm sure that our prophecies about the loss of a compass in Europe is mistaken. I'll tell you how. Because Hassan al-Banna, Ibn Taymiyyah, and other radical philosophers and doctriners saw something that encourages me all the time. I believe that Europeans and Westerners are smart people, whether you define them as secular, religious, the people of brain, they are smart. Do you think that they are ready to give up their lives just because of ideas that don't touch the ground? I don't believe. And the fact that you mentioned Hassan Banna is very important because Hassan Banna touched the real reason for the revolution you see. Because Europe, even though they believed in church and Christianity, and they were religious for several periods, and now they came to be secular, all the creations of medicine, technology, all inventions coming from the Western brains. And what make him crazy, Hassan Banna, is how come that we had the power, we had the sword, we had the horses, we ruled the world. What happened to us? How come that those Westerns, El Mushrikun, that believe that Jesus and Allah and the Son, those people who even believe in triangular of three, they called Mushrikun because Muslims believe in one God. And actually, when you see on the houses Allah, Muhammad, in Quran, they are all the same level. Sometimes you're mixed up. Who's most important, Muhammad or Allah? I don't know. But in general, they are far beyond Islam. In general, creates, if you look what they've done till today, they done nothing to the culture, completely almost nothing. The thing that they say, we had developed the philosophy of Andalusia. By the way, those who want back what Islam conquered want back Andalusia, which is Spain. I wonder how come that Spain support them. So in the same logic that they want Palestine, they want Andalus. But they also walking, sleeping. They do not understand that the ambition of Islam goes back to get back Andalusia from there. But speaking about Hassan al-Banna, I want to get back to the story of Hassan al-Banna. They say those Christians who believe in it, they do not believe in God, and they believe in a man that was created by a woman and a man, and they say, Christian, that Allah was involved in it, they make a joke of it, even the Quran. So they do not understand how come that from this civilization is corrupted, all sex and drugs and corruption. How come that this West is achieving these achievements by the time they say Allah or Muhammad and take the civilization back to the 7th century? And by the way, this is one of the questions I ask those people when I meet them. Listen, in the Quran they say, جعلناكم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر. Something like this. It means that we have fixed you as the best nation upon earth. I said to them, not is it because you prevent yourself of doing bad things and doing good things. This is خير أمة أخرجت للناس, the best ummah. It's wrong. They are خير ummah because خيرات الدنيا. They got all the gifts that God might give a nation. They got the Dijla, El Furat, Nil, the three rivers full of water. They got the largest lands upon the globe. They have all the Middle East belong to Islam.
And all the
So
oil now.
precisely, and they got 1 million or something Muslims. So akthar anafir, which means in Arabic, population, demography, people, lands, water, oil. They turn it into shit, unfortunately. By the time they look at Europe and say, how come that those ignorant infidels raised themselves to a technology, reached the moon, and we are now fighting and killing each other when some daughter of somebody has spoken to somebody, kill her on honor killing. This is the level they are doing with. Then objecting the fact that Israel existed. When you look at Al Jazeera channel, you see only one thing that in those people's mind: Israel. The people has no world of contents. They do not have anything in mind except the Duda, the womb. Israel, Israel, Jews, Israel, nothing else but this.
And the al-Banna response is to go back to basics, effectively.
Right.
To go back to the fundamentals, the ethics, the principles that were key to Islam. So isn't that what you're saying the West needs to do, because it has been spoiled by wealth and freedom and all these liberties and things that people took for granted? People like me never knew any different. Our parents did. You may have done here in Israel. I grew up with everything I ever wanted. And this is the first time in many people's lives, even here in Israel, where they're waking up and saying, this isn't free. We have to fight for it.
You are right, but I do not preach here that people go back to be religious. It is not the formula of survival. The formula of survival is keep on doing what we did. I contain myself in the West, of course. Keep on doing what we do successfully, but remain one eye open towards the risks surrounding you. What we call here the progressives are exaggerated in the question: if you are hidden here, serve your second cheek. It's not a question of I give up my identity just to satisfy you. Progressive means in what we usually think that we looked at it. Never mind, he doesn't mean it. The threat is not serious. What we see here, missiles, ah, you need it for survival. Excuses for the threat. Nuclear weapon. He's a free nation. Why shouldn't he? He need energy. He have oil. Why shouldn't he? He always blocked Hormuz and Bab el-Mandeb. It's temporary. It's only against Israel. It's not against the West. This cognitive dissonance, we ignore the signs. I don't want people to change the way they live. If I give some advice to the European, be precisely what you are. Develop, be creative, have some more children than you have now. Don't be so egoist. Don't take care only for yourself. Have families, have children. It's not my turn to say this, but it's my point of view personally. You asked me. And keep on doing what you do and develop and be creative, but keep an eye open. Those people who threat you mean it. Those people, in any event, if some football group has won, all Paris is in flame, cars is broken, the stores are stolen. What's the connection? They give you clues. Take it seriously. That's all story.
If the West and Europe won't wake up until it's too late, and our mission then is to wake them up before then, to save these things you say we've benefited
Some of them
from.
know already.
That's my question. You said Macron. Why is Macron doing what he's doing in relation to the Middle East? Because you said he's afraid
He's frightened
of what will happen.
to the bones.
And this characterizes, I think, every single Western leader who looks at the struggle Israel is in and condemns it, because they all know, and many of them do it, like our government, out of fear that they will be voted out by an influential minority that will push them out. So how do you wake up someone who is actually only pretending to be asleep?
This question I would prefer pointing you in. You are a European, you coming from Great Britain. Listen to the terminology, Great Britain. And you asking a local Israeli, what should we do there?
Well, because you're getting it right.
Imitate us.
Yes.
We are not afraid of anybody except for Lord, for God. We are not afraid of anybody. We have the prophet Yechezkel. How do you say it in English? Yechezkel? Ezekiel.
Ezekiel, I think.
Yechezkel said he has a prophecy I recommend everybody to go back to the Bible and see. He described the Jewish people as burnt bones in the valley. That's what he said. And he said, "You, son of Israel, wake up from the valley of burned bones and create yourself back as a nation and come back and build Israel again. And you will be a holy Gentile and a kingdom of law." Something like this. Maybe I changed. Please, I'm good in Quran.
Your Quran is better than
Yes, unfortunately. But it's very, very critical to understand that if you treat yourself seriously and want to exist and want to remain somebody in your homeland, and a newcomer dictating you how to behave, you've lost your case.
And here's the problem then, because what you're saying to so many people in Britain, for example, sounds outrageous, controversial, racist, all of these things they say. They look at Israel out of a sense of, you say, colonial guilt, and I don't disagree, and out of a new identity of Britishness, where there is shame for the empire and the things it did wrong, and its colonialism.
Proud of their history.
For
They
sure.
should have, first of all, first band, be proud of your history. Be proud of your achievements. There's nothing to be ashamed on. They lost a very, very unique and important factor in personality. Begin with yourself. If you want to say something about somebody else, let's ask who you are.
This is where I'm going with this, because of course you're right. But the reason they feel that shame and embarrassment, and this is the problem, it's societies in the world now who are ashamed of their past and societies who are proud of their past.
I'm embarrassed by the question. You know why? Because they are facing an idea, an imperial idea. Islam is actually an imperial idea.
Of course it is.
The ability and force of evil empire who treat any European as a shlal milchama. How do you call it? Ghanimat harb. So if somebody's wife is caught, she'd be considered as a car.
So Reuven, this is my point here. You've just hit the nail on the head, which is to say that we need the pride in our own identity, achievements, and history.
This is our standing point.
And it has become almost fundamental and central to the core of so many in the West that actually the highest thing we can do as sentient modern beings is to recognize our privilege and see it as shameful, to recognize our mistakes and see them as shameful. And this has overtaken, it's what Gad Saad calls suicidal empathy. We have empathy for the other, and the very things that we're embarrassed of in ourselves, we don't recognize they are trying to do now.
You should be empathy to the other, but not on your account. This is a simple equilibrium. Don't sacrifice yourself out of empathy just to please somebody else. You do not disappear for him. You are there. He is a newcomer. He come to you. He wanted to be your guest. You should remind, you are a guest in my land. You should be gratitude for the fact that you are here. I do not think myself superior to you, but on the same time, you should be gratitude because the United Kingdom of England got you as a member, as a civilian, behave like us. And I heard some proud Englishmen saying, if you're not satisfied from our manners, from our language, from the way our living, you're invited to live back to your homeland, the place you came from. This should be the slogan of Europe in general. This is our manners, this is our language, this is our belief, this is our way of life. You want to change? Go back to your land.
And instead, Europe, which killed 6 million of its Jews out of guilt, allowed in millions of people from the Middle East because of their plight when they don't necessarily have complementary
This
ethics.
is one of the ridiculous people because Israel didn't appear rebuilt itself here not because of Churchill, not because the White Book, not because any of these milestones they were obliged. You ask me, who obliged them to do this? I believe that is God's will that the Jews, after 2,000 years, got back to the homeland after being killed by the Christian society. Actually, if you look at it out of religious matter, who killed the Jews in Europe? Christians.
That's my
All
question.
over, all
I think,
Europe, all
just in case there's a misunderstanding here, this I see. I see Israel as a blueprint, like you're saying. But Europe, out of guilt for what it did to its Jews, it then, in the current era, welcomed in refugees from Syria or elsewhere in the Middle East, even though their principles and values, in large part, their cultural difference, was drastically at odds with much of what I'll call Judeo-Christian values of Europe.
You mean to ask whether England, for example, at the time of the mandate is blamed for the fact that the creation of Israel is on British shoulders?
Well, this is what they want it to be. They do want that.
Balfour Declaration, etc. It's totally bullshit. I'll tell you why. Because actually, those who claim that they are refugees in Israel, actually there were so few, and if they were not objecting the very existence of the re-establishing Jewish state as the British mandate wanted at the beginning, and I remind you, to create an Arab state and a Jewish state in the Middle East. They already created an Arab state. Jordan is an Arab state, and a Jewish state should be in the borders of it now. And this was the beginning of the program of rebuild the homeland for the Jews. And we got the Jewish land, and Jordan became the Arab land, as it's written. Nobody talk about Palestinians. They create in the chaos that was created after the collapse of Ottoman Empire and the Sykes-Picot Agreement. They created Jordan. They created later on, and after a lot of hesitations and a lot of stepping back from what was agreed upon, and the Arabs didn't accept it. So the sense of regret in what the Muslims try to put on the shoulders of the British, it's not the British who judge that the Jews come back. It's not, for example, the recognition of America to Jerusalem as the united capital of Jewish state. Can they put the blame on Trump that Jerusalem has been reunited, become a capital of it? It's not him who decided this. It's history. This is a way to remove the sense of blame from the British people. They have no connection.
But that's my point. I think that's what Europe predominantly, and more than Europe, much of the West, even America before Trump, has done. There's this sense of guilt. And so a number of actions have taken place as if to assuage that guilt that don't really fix it. But let me just close with this question, which is, from what you know, from your expertise and your experience right here in the center of it all, there are 2 billion Muslims, give or take.
A bit less, I believe.
1.8, let's say.
Yeah.
What is the future for all of us, not just for Israel? How are we going to balance this? Muslims aren't all terrorists. Muslims aren't all extremists. And yet you tell me that in the core of Islam is the very belief that causes the extremists to act the way they do.
The only one who imitated true Islam, the terrorists.
And
But
so what
fortunately, the majority do not. Fortunately.
So is the Reuven Berko solution mass conversion or mass movement away from Islam, a reform of Islam, that we submit to
It's
Islam?
not us to say what will Muslims do. Thanks God, the majority, those 2 billion Muslims around the world, are not that busy in the story of being terrorists. I told you, it's a simple definition. Not all the Muslims are terrorists, thanks God. Few of them are Muslims, but all terrorists, almost all terrorists are Muslims. Does it lead us to generalize that all Muslims are terrorists? No. What should be done in the case of the danger of the community, all Muslim societies in Arab worlds and Islamic worlds, one day will declare jihad on the West. They cannot, as long as it's a matter of power. We go to square one. Square one says survival equal power, and progressive slogans that let's give up, let's contain. In the Middle East, those who claim like this, we have some of them in the Israeli left. You see what happened to Oslo Accord. Those slogans ignore what those people has in mind, and as a result, we got Oslo, and the result of Oslo was a disaster. If you want to go ahead to Abraham Accords, you should be the most powerful nation here in Israel than ever. This is the only way to be respected in the Middle East. This is the only way to be respected all over the world towards people who are. When I made my doctoral dissertation, some professor said to me, listen, the world is divided into status quo and revisionists. REV, the balls, like on billiard table. Some of them written REV, revisionists. Some of them SQ. Organ, those progressive are SQ. They want to keep the question as it is, but they ignore the balls who are REV, revolutionary. They want to change. The whole billiard game is changing the balls. If you want to be strong and stable, take into account that you are surrounded by balls which is written on them are a revolutionary vision. They want to change. You want to change you, take you out to be you. So in order to keep playing on the game of survival, you have to be strong. It's not me, a doctorate in Islamic studies, who teaches the world. It's for me, it's embarrassing to talk about it once we are talking about philosophy of survival. But from my own experience and my own meetings with my Palestinian and others in the arena of the conflict, I can tell you sincerely, there's no way to survival unless you're sure of your rightness and your way, your heritage, who you are, what is the moral authority that give you the right to live here. Bible, Bible, Bible. At least these 3 points are not religious. And be careful. Those who want you here want Andalusia in Spain and want France, and those who invade France, those who invade actually Byzantium, which is now Turkey, were Muslims. Those who destroyed Hagia Sophia and turned it to a mosque are the same people who are now in the head of Erdogan, which is a Muslim brother, want to have nuclear weapon. So this is unstable ground, very, very risky to earthquakes. Be careful.
Dr. Reuven Berko, very clear, very, very stark warning. And thank you very much for talking with me.
Thank you very much for having me. Forgive me for my awful English. If we had this interview in Arabic, I promise you I would be much more clear.
And I promise you I would be silent.